Evans never cut Hondo off completely. That would have been obvious. Instead, things stayed almost the same, which was worse. Hondo still worked, still ate with the others, still slept under canvas with the rest of the men who didn't belong anywhere anymore. But nothing important touched his hands. The radios were moved farther from the work areas. Vehicles he'd worked on were reassigned to different patrols. A man he didn't recognize started showing up wherever Hondo happened to be, always close enough to hear him breathe. Not guarding, watching. Evans didn't speak to him for 2 days. When he finally did, it wasn't in private. They stood near the fuel drums, generators humming low. "You know why I don't release men like you?" Evans said, eyes on the gauge he was checking. Hondo shook his head. "You don't know me." Evans nodded. "Exactly." He tightened the cap and stepped back. "If I let you walk, you don't disappear. You adjust. Men like you don't stop acting when they're free." He glanced at Hondo then just once. "So I watch first." That was all. No warning. No threat. Hondo understood. He didn't sleep that night. The relocation came without ceremony. No blindfold at first. Just a quiet shake to wake him, and hands guiding him toward a truck already running. They put the blindfold on after. That mattered. He counted turns anyway. Smelled water. Heard a bridge. Felt the road change under the tires. Then one of the men spoke without thinking. "Kono wants this one gone," he said. "Too many variables." Another answered, "New sights tighter." Hondo felt it settle in his chest. He wasn't being punished. He was being removed. They stopped in a clearing that smelled like wet earth and old fire. The blindfold came off. Another detainee stumbled when his hands were cut free. Panicked, half-starved, desperate. He bolted without a plan, straight into a raised rifle. The shot didn't fire, but the motion was enough. Hondo moved because there wasn't time not to. He drove his shoulder in, felt bone give, felt the man fall wrong. Too wrong. The sound was short and final. No one yelled. No one rushed. Evans stepped into view from the edge of the trees, having seen enough. He looked at the body, then at Hondo. Not angry. Not disappointed. Resolved. "So," Evans said, "now I know." Hondo stood there breathing hard, hands shaking for the first time since this started. "You were never going to let me go," he said. Evans nodded. "No. Why?" Evans considered him the way a man considers weather, something you adapt to, not argue with. "Because you don't belong in cages," he said. "And men like you don't stay where they're put." He turned away. Hondo understood then. He wasn't a prisoner. He was a problem that had finished being studied. And problems didn't get moved again. They got eliminated. They worked him at the edge of the clearing. Axes. Saws. Hand saws that bit slow and forced you to lean into them. Trees marked with orange paint came down one at a time, dragged clear to open sight lines and fields of fire. This wasn't a camp. It was becoming something permanent. They put a rifle on the man 10 yards behind him. Not aimed, just present. That was the mistake. The labor crew worked downhill toward a shallow ravine choked with slash and fallen timber. Thick brush. Bad footing. Broken visibility. Hondo filed it away. Then a tree went wrong. It cracked twisted, fell against another trunk instead of clean to the ground. "Clear," someone shouted. Men moved. That was the moment. Hondo dropped the axe and ran toward the fall, not away from it. Gunfire erupted instantly. Bark exploded near his head. A round punched through his upper arm, spinning him into the ravine. Pain flared white-hot. He didn't stop. He tore a rifle out of a man's hands, drove the butt into his face, fired twice, necessary shots, then moved again. The woods swallowed him. Shouts echoed behind him. Orders sharp and angry. Dogs barking farther back. Radios alive with clipped voices. Hondo ran until his lungs burned and his arm went numb, then slowed, then vanished into the folds of a land the way his grandfather had taught him. Break line of sight. Break sound. Break pattern. He stopped the bleeding. Bound the wound. Locked the pain behind purpose. By the time Evans reached the ravine, it was already over. 2 men down. 1 dead. He planned it, someone said. Evans stood slowly. Yes. Orders. 3-man teams, Evans said calmly. No radios unless necessary. He's wounded, not desperate. A pause. Yet. They didn't chase him. 3 men moved out without hurry, spacing themselves so no mistake echoed. They trusted time more than speed. Blood. Not much. He'll try to stop it, one said. That's where we catch him. Broken branches, scuffed bark, bent ferns. When the trail vanished, they waited. A torn strip of cloth caught on thorn. Still human, one muttered. They moved again. Not closing. Not yet. Hondo slid behind a fallen log, chest heaving. His arm burned. His ribs screamed. He forced himself awake. Don't sleep hurt. Sleep gets people buried. He drank muddy water from a seep. Didn't care. The woods stayed quiet. Too quiet. That meant they were following. He crossed a creek twice. Climbed hard uphill. Found stone and shadow and wedged himself in to wait. A faint whistle carried through the trees. A test. Footsteps passed close enough to hear weight shift. He didn't move. They went on. Annie woke before dawn with her heart racing. Atlas stood at the door rigid. Something had changed. She stepped onto the porch. The world was still. Too still. Somewhere out there, she knew Hondo wasn't waiting anymore. He was running, and someone was behind him. Waiting was over again, and this time, she didn't think it would come back. That was the danger of a wounded man who knew the land. He stopped running and started thinking. The lead tracker felt it in the way the trail went cold, then warm again, like a heartbeat you couldn't quite catch. Slow, he said. The others did without question. They found where Hondo had doubled back through water, crossed stone, climbed hard. Smart moves. Old moves. The kind you learned from someone who'd survived long before maps mattered. He's hurt, the second tracker said, but he's not panicking. The lead tracker nodded. That's worse. They spread wider now, triangulating instead of following. One man cut high ground. Another dropped low, moving parallel through brush and shadow. Then the radio crackled, soft, quick. The lead tracker flinched, irritated. Keep it brief, he whispered. A voice came through, clipped, professional, and not as careful as it should have been. Command wants update. You near the rock face yet? The tracker hesitated. Just a fraction. Negative, he replied. Still working sign. The radio clicked off. The lead tracker exhaled slowly. He heard that, the third man said. Yeah, the lead replied. And now he knows what we're looking for. They moved again, but now they weren't hunting a man. They were racing one. Tony was in the back room with Ramona, the radio set low, barely more than a whisper of static and distant voices. They'd been listening more than talking lately. Learning cadence. Call signs. When to ignore chatter and when to lean in. That was Ramona's strength. Tony's was knowing when a man was lying. The radio crackled again. Escaped detainee confirmed. Wounded but mobile. Track teams deployed. Tony's hand froze mid-reach. Ramona lifted her head slowly. Say that again, she murmured, not into the radio, just to herself. Subject last known heading toward the limestone cut near the old quarry road. Maintain perimeter discipline. No civilian contact. Tony swallowed. The voice continued, unaware it was being heard by the wrong people. Colonel wants him contained before he reaches water again. The radio clicked silent. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Tony stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. That's him, he said. Ramona nodded. Yes. Annie was already in the doorway, drawn by something she couldn't name. What did you hear? They got a man out, Tony said. Escaped. Wounded. Being tracked. Annie didn't ask how he knew. She already knew. Where? Annie asked. Before Tony could answer, Dylan stepped in from outside, having caught the last of it through the open door. Old Quarry Road. Dylan said, Limestone cut. Tony nodded. You know it. Dylan's jaw tightened. Yeah, there's a spring down there. Cold water. And a rock shelf that'll hide a man if he knows how to use it. Cheyenne stepped up beside him. That's 10 miles as the crow flies. Not if you know the woods, Dylan said. Annie felt the room narrow, everything suddenly sharp and clear. They're tracking him, she said, which means he's alive. Ramona reached out and took Annie's hand, and smart enough to stay that way. Tony was already reaching for his jacket. If Evan's men think he's heading there, that's where they'll lean hardest. Dylan nodded once, which means if Hondo's still ahead of them. He didn't finish. Annie straightened, fear burning down into something harder. He's not alone, she said. Not anymore. Outside, Atlas stood and faced the trees, ears forward, body still. Somewhere beyond the fields and roads and quiet houses, a wounded man moved through shadow towards stone and water. And for the first time since Hondo ran, they had a direction. Hondo felt them before he saw them. The woods had gone wrong, too still in some places, too loud in others. A snapped twig that didn't belong. Breath where there shouldn't be any. The trackers weren't circling anymore. They were closing. He shifted along the rock shelf, pain flaring up his arm, boots scraping stone despite his care. A shape moved below him, one of them, rifle low, eyes scanning uphill. Too close. Hondo dropped behind a boulder just as the tracker stepped into view. The man froze for half a second, surprise flashing across his face. That half second was enough. They hit hard. Bodies slammed into stone. The rifle went wide, clattering away. The tracker fought for control. Hondo fought to end it. Fists. Elbows. Weight and leverage. The tracker drove him back, pain exploding through Hondo's ribs. Hondo answered with a headbutt that rang both their skulls. They went down together. The first shot cracked through the quarry. Then another. Dylan and Tony had arrived. The second tracker spun, rifle coming up as Dylan fired again, the round chewing into stone inches from his head. Tony moved wide, pistol barking once, forcing the man into cover. "Contact!" someone shouted. The woods erupted. The tracker returned fire. Dylan ducked, firing back in short, controlled bursts, keeping the man pinned. Tony shifted position. The rock gave way. He fell hard, tumbling down the slope, landing wrong with a sound that punched the air from his lungs. He screamed once, then clenched his teeth. "Leg," Tony gasped. "It's broke." Dylan dragged him into cover as Hondo slammed the first tracker's head into the boulder once. Twice. The man went slack. Hondo staggered back, blood running down his arm, not all of it his. "Hondo!" Dylan shouted. "Here." They regrouped fast. Tony was pale, leg bent wrong. "You gotta go," Tony said. "They'll bring more." "Not leaving you," Hondo said. They moved downhill slow, half carrying Tony. Hondo took point. Then he saw them. Two shapes moving parallel through the trees above. "Down," he whispered. He braced, fired once. Then again. Then a third time. One man stumbled and vanished into brush. The other dropped flat, firing blind. Hondo didn't wait. "Move." They dragged their trail through creek, thorn, and stone until the woods swallowed them whole. By the time the shooting stopped, there was nothing left to chase. Just silence. They withdrew. One tracker leaned hard on the other, blood soaking through his jacket. They stopped under cover of trees. The wounded man coughed, red at his lips. "Did we get him?" he asked faintly. "No," the tracker said. The man exhaled. "Figures." By the time they reached camp, he was already dead. Evans listened without interrupting. "He wasn't firing to scatter," Evans said. "He was firing to leave." "Yes, sir." Evans looked toward the woods. "Then he's adapting," he said. "And the game has changed." They didn't stop until the land forced them to. Tony's leg was bad. Not bleeding out, but wrong. "We make a splint," Hondo said. They worked fast. "Quiet. You two need to leave me," Tony said. "No," Dylan answered. "We don't leave people," Hondo said. As dusk settled, they hid in a fold of rock and earth. No fire. No talk. Somewhere far off, engine started. The woods swallowed the sound. But the message carried anyway. The hunt wasn't over. It had just learned what it was chasing.